For nearly a century, one name has dominated the skies of the East: MiG. It's a name that's iconic, legendary, and for decades was simply unstoppable. This dynasty of steel and fire became a symbol of Soviet power, changing the game in aerial warfare and striking fear into the hearts of its enemies. Building formidable machines like the MiG-25 that made the West tremble, and the legendary MiG-29 that could outmaneuver almost any jet of its time. But MiG wasn't born from a single genius. Behind those three letters stood two men: Artem Mikoyan, a machine tool operator from a small Armenian village obsessed with the dream of flight, and Mikhail Gurevich, a brilliant Ukrainian-born aerodynamicist whose quiet mathematical mind shaped the Bureau's early designs. Together, they created a design team whose influence would stretch across continents and decades. This is the story of how Mikoyan and Gurevich built a legacy that's still flying today. How two completely different people forged one of the most iconic aircraft families in history. And if you haven't seen my previous video about the Sukhoi Design Bureau, the story of how everyone doubted Pavel Sukhoi before he went on to build some of the most iconic aircraft ever, you can check it out by clicking the info card right here or using the link in the description. But today, we're looking at the other great Soviet duo and the design bureau that carried both their names. To understand how this legendary empire of jets began, we need to start from the very beginning.
Our story begins on August 5, 1905, in the small village of Sanahin, Armenia, then part of the Russian Empire. This was the birthplace of Artem Ivanovich Mikoyan. His beginnings were humble, though his family had its connections. His older brother, Anastas Mikoyan, would grow up to become a powerful Soviet politician, a connection that would later prove useful in the turbulent world of Soviet aviation. But young Artem wasn't drawn to politics. His gaze was fixed on the sky. That fascination began in 1914, when a damaged military plane made an emergency landing near his village. For a boy who had likely never seen anything like it up close, the moment was life-changing. It planted a seed that would grow into a lifelong obsession with flight. Artem's path to the skies wasn't direct. After finishing basic school, he began work far from any cockpit, first as a machine tool operator in Rostov, then at a factory in Moscow. This hands-on experience gave him a deep, practical understanding of mechanics and engineering. Military service interrupted his career briefly, but his true calling awaited. Unlike some of his contemporaries, Artem wasn't a flamboyant showman. He was quiet, analytical, but beneath that calm exterior burned a relentless drive for speed, efficiency, and perfection. Meanwhile, on the other side of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gurevich was quietly carving his own path. Born in 1893 in Rostov-on-Don, he was nearly a dozen years older than Mikoyan. From an early age, Gurevich showed an exceptional aptitude for mathematics and physics, often tinkering with mechanical models and small engines in his spare time. His curiosity was boundless, and he quickly developed a fascination with aerodynamics and the science of flight. While other children were playing games, Gurevich was studying the mechanics of propellers, experimenting with gliders, and reading whatever technical books he could find.
Gurevich's formal education further sharpened his mind. He attended Moscow State Technical University, where he focused on mechanical engineering and aircraft structures. His professors noted his analytical mind, meticulous attention to detail, and ability to solve complex design problems that stumped even senior students. Unlike Mikoyan, who combined practical skill with intuition, Gurevich brought a calculated, methodical approach to aviation design, an engineer's mind capable of translating theory into machines that could actually fly. The paths of these two men, one a hands-on dreamer with a passion for speed, the other a brilliant analyst obsessed with precision, were destined to converge. Together, they would lay the foundations for a design partnership that would forever change Soviet aviation. The turning point for Mikoyan came in 1931, when he was accepted into the prestigious Zhukovsky Air Force Academy in Moscow, the heart of Soviet aviation innovation. Surrounded by the latest theories in aerodynamics, he thrived. Along with classmates, he designed and built his first small propeller plane, the Oktyabrenok. It was a modest student project, but it foreshadowed the revolutionary aircraft that Mikoyan would help bring to life. By the time he graduated in 1937, he was no longer just a dreamer. He was a fully qualified mechanical engineer and pilot ready to shape the future of Soviet aviation. Gurevich, already a respected engineer by the late 1930s, was immersed in the rapidly evolving field of aircraft design. He had begun working at key design bureaus where he gained experience in stress analysis, aerodynamics, and prototype development. Though their early careers were separate, fate was setting the stage for their meeting, a partnership that would merge bold ambition with unparalleled technical expertise, culminating in the creation of one of the most legendary design bureaus in aviation history.
Fresh out of the academy, Mikoyan landed a dream job, working for the most respected aircraft designer in the Soviet Union, Nikolai Polikarpov. The Polikarpov Design Bureau was an aviation powerhouse, the creators of the iconic I-15 and I-16 fighters that were the workhorses of the Red Air Force. For Mikoyan, it was the ultimate apprenticeship in the high-stakes world of military aircraft design. It was during this period that Artem first crossed paths with Mikhail Gurevich. Gurevich was already establishing himself as a meticulous and brilliant engineer, known for his ability to turn complex aerodynamic theory into practical, flyable machines. The two men quickly recognized that their strengths complemented each other perfectly. Mikoyan brought vision, hands-on skill, and an instinct for innovation, while Gurevich brought analytical rigor, precision, and deep technical knowledge. Over time, their professional respect grew into a strong partnership, founded on mutual trust and shared ambition. As the world edged toward another war, Joseph Stalin demanded newer, faster planes, and he demanded them quickly. To spark competition and speed up development, the big design bureaus were broken up. In a move that would change aviation history forever, Artem Mikoyan was named the head of a brand new design office in Moscow on December 8, 1939. Recognizing the scale of the challenge, he immediately invited his trusted colleague to join him, Mikhail Gurevich. Their combined skills set the stage for the creation of something truly extraordinary. And just like that, the Mikoyan Gurevich Design Bureau, Experimental Design Bureau number 155, was born. The I in their name stood for the Russian word "and," giving us the legendary acronym we all know as MiG.
Their first task was a big one: build a high-altitude interceptor to defend Soviet airspace. Their debut project, the MiG-1, looked promising on paper: a sleek, long-nosed fighter with a powerful AM-35A inline engine capable of over 600 kilometers per hour. But looks can be deceiving. Rushed into production to meet Stalin's impossible deadlines, it became a nightmare in the air. The plane was nose-heavy, unstable, and demanded near superhuman skill to keep under control. Still, Mikoyan and Gurevich learned fast. They refined the airframe, adjusted the center of gravity, increased the fuel capacity, and created its successor, the MiG-3. This version fixed most of the handling issues, and at high altitude was among the fastest piston-engine fighters in the world, capable of hitting nearly 640 kilometers per hour. On paper, it could match or even outrun German Bf-109s and intercept incoming bombers at the stratosphere's edge. But war doesn't care about paper. When Germany invaded USSR in 1941, the Luftwaffe fought low and fast, strafing columns and clashing just above the treetops. The MiG-3's powerful engine lost efficiency at low altitudes. Its long takeoff run was deadly on rough frontline airstrips, and its armament, a pair of machine guns and a single cannon, was too light to bring down armored bombers. In muddy, chaotic air battles over the Eastern Front, speed at 30,000 feet meant nothing. The MiG-3 was a thoroughbred designed for a kind of war that never came. It was brilliant in its niche, but useless in the fight it actually faced. Soviet pilots soon favored sturdier, low-altitude brawlers like the Yak-1 and Lag-3, planes that could take hits and give them back. Mikoyan and Gurevich had built one of the fastest fighters in the world, but the future of aerial combat had already shifted under their feet. It was becoming clear the next revolution wouldn't come from propellers, it would come from jets. If you watched this up to this point and you like this type of videos, let us know by subscribing to the channel and leaving a comment about what you want to see next. That really helps to speed up the process of creation. But now, let's continue learning this incredible story of MiG Design Bureau.
The end of World War II didn't bring peace, it brought the Cold War. The new battlefield was all about ideology and technology, and at the front of the line was the jet engine. Soviet engineers scrambled to catch up with the West using captured German research and, in a truly bizarre twist of history, getting a helping hand when the British government actually sold them advanced Rolls-Royce Nene jet engines. The first jet from Mikoyan Gurevich was the MiG-9. Entering service in 1946, it was the USSR's first jet fighter, but it was really more of a stepping stone. It had unreliable engines and control issues, but it taught them what they needed to know. Everything they learned from the MiG-9, the power of that British engine, which they reverse-engineered and called the Klimov VK-1, and German swept-wing designs all came together for their next project. The order was simple. The Soviet Union needed a jet fighter that could beat anything the West had. On New Year's Eve 1948, their new masterpiece took flight, the MiG-15. It was a revolution, both visually and technologically. With its clean 35-degree swept wings and heavy cannon armament, it was a beast. It was designed to climb like a rocket and shoot down high-flying American bombers like the B-29 Superfortress. But its real test came in a small patch of sky over the Korean peninsula, a place that would go down in history as MiG Alley.
When the Korean War kicked off in June 1950, American jets owned the sky, or at least they thought they did. The U.S. Air Force's frontline fighters, the F-80 Shooting Star and the F-84 Thunderjet, were straight-winged designs, reliable and rugged, but already showing their age. They were fast for late 40s technology, but at high altitudes, they bled speed and struggled to climb. Against slow piston-engine planes, they were kings. That is, until November 1950, when the MiG-15 showed up and ruined the party. Flown by Soviet pilots but painted in Chinese and North Korean colors, the MiG-15 was a shock. It could climb almost twice as fast, hit over 1,000 kilometers per hour, and carry brutal 23mm and 37mm cannons that could tear bombers apart in seconds. It completely dominated the older straight-winged jets and forced the B-29 bombers to practically give up on daylight raids. The MiG-15 sent a jolt of panic through the West. The U.S. scrambled to get its own swept-wing fighter, the F-86 Sabre, to Korea to even the odds. The dogfights over MiG Alley between the Sabre and the MiG-15 were legendary. Many of the pilots who fought over Korea were aces from World War II. Veterans who had once flown side by side against Nazi Germany now found themselves shooting at each other under new flags. On the American side, there was James Jabara, the first jet ace in history, and Joseph McConnell, who would score 16 victories before being killed testing a new jet. Across the sky, Soviet ace Evgeny Pepeleyev led the 324th Fighter Division, personally downing a dozen F-86s. There were even whispered stories of duels between pilots who had unknowingly fought together over Europe just a few years earlier. Comrades turned ghosts in the jet age. The first major jet-on-jet battles in history. While the F-86 Sabre probably had the edge, thanks to better trained pilots and being a more stable gun platform, the MiG-15 had made its point. It single-handedly proved the Soviet Union was a world-class power in jet design. The name MiG wasn't just a company anymore, it was a name to be feared.
But the incredible success of the MiG-15 wasn't a one-hit wonder. It was the start of a dynasty. For the next 30 years, the Mikoyan Gurevich Design Bureau cranked out a series of legendary planes that would shape the face of the Cold War. First came the MiG-15's direct descendant, the MiG-17. Arriving in the early 1950s, it was a smarter, more nimble version of the original. It was also the first MiG to get an afterburner, giving it that extra kick to break the sound barrier in a dive. It was a tough, reliable dogfighter that was exported everywhere and saw tons of action over Vietnam and the Middle East, often giving more advanced American jets a serious run for their money. One time, for example, in 1965, a Chinese MiG-17 even shot down an American F-4 Phantom, the most advanced jet in the world at the time, marking the Phantom's first ever loss in combat. A shocking moment that proved even a subsonic MiG could destroy America's most advanced jet at the time. But by the mid-50s, breaking the sound barrier wasn't enough. The new gold standard was true supersonic flight. Mikoyan's answer would become the most produced supersonic jet fighter in history, the MiG-21. With its signature delta wing and dead simple design, the MiG-21 was classic Soviet philosophy. It was fast, agile, and built in absolutely staggering numbers, over 11,000 of them. In Vietnam, MiG-21s became the ultimate hit-and-run predators. They used their superior climb rate and agility to ambush American F-4 Phantoms, scoring dozens of kills before vanishing back into the clouds. The Phantom's own crews learned to avoid them. Many tried not to engage in direct dogfights, knowing that the MiG could outturn them in close combat. For dozens of air forces around the world, the MiG-21 was their very first supersonic fighter. It was cheap, easy to fix, and in the right hands, could challenge any plane of its time. The MiG-21 became a global icon of Soviet influence, flying in over 50 countries and making the word MiG the word for fighter jet in many parts of the world.
While the MiG-21 was the mass-produced workhorse, the Bureau's next famous plane was born from pure fear. In the early 1960s, Soviet spies delivered some terrifying news. America was building the XB-70 Valkyrie, a bomber designed to fly at Mach 3 over 70,000 feet up. Nothing the Soviets had could even get close to it. The challenge was laid down for Mikoyan: build something that can fly to the edge of space and catch the uncatchable. The result looked like it was pulled straight out of science fiction, the MiG-25, which NATO nicknamed Foxbat. When Western spy planes first got a glimpse, its huge wings, twin tail fins, and massive engines caused a full-blown panic. U.S. analysts believed it was a highly maneuverable superfighter made from exotic titanium alloys and capable of Mach 3 combat. The CIA thought it could outperform anything in the American arsenal, even the top-secret SR-71. That fear pushed the U.S. Air Force into action, directly inspiring the creation of the F-15 Eagle, a jet built on one simple principle: not a pound for air-to-ground. Every design choice on the Eagle, its huge engines, large wings, and unmatched thrust-to-weight ratio, was meant to beat the mysterious MiG-25. The MiG-25 itself was an exercise in pure, brutalist engineering, built mostly from nickel steel to withstand the hellish heat of high-speed flight. It could soar above 20 kilometers and fly faster than Mach 2.8, though pilots risked engine meltdown if they stayed there too long. In 1977, it set the absolute world altitude record for a jet, reaching an astonishing 37,650 meters, over 123,000 feet. The truth about the Foxbat finally came out the year before, in 1976, when Soviet pilot Viktor Belenko defected during a training flight and landed his MiG-25 at a civilian airport in Hokkaido, Japan. His daring escape sent shockwaves through the Soviet Air Force. Western engineers eagerly took the jet apart, discovering it wasn't a titanium marvel after all, but a rugged steel brute with vacuum tube avionics built for speed and altitude, not agility. Still, the MiG-25 had done its job. It terrified the West, reshaped American fighter design, and proved that raw power could be just as effective as elegance.
As the Cold War headed into its final years, the Bureau had to counter a new wave of American fighters like the F-15 and F-16. Their answer was the MiG-29, or Fulcrum as NATO called it, a twin-engined, super-agile air superiority fighter built for intense turning dogfights. Designed in the 1970s to outmaneuver Western jets, it combined powerful R-27 engines, aerodynamically unstable wings for extreme agility, and advanced avionics like a helmet-mounted sight. Its design emphasized short takeoff and landing capabilities, allowing it to operate from small or damaged airfields near the front lines. Engineers also focused on redundancy and durability, so even under combat damage, the aircraft could continue flying. Armed with a 30mm cannon and short and medium-range missiles, it could strike fast, then vanish, or engage in close dogfights that required high maneuverability. It was built to operate from austere airfields and handle harsh conditions. It was intuitive enough for pilots to exploit its full potential. When revealed to the West in 1986, its ability to pull off extreme maneuvers like the Cobra stunned observers, proving the Mikoyan Bureau hadn't lost its touch.
Artem Mikoyan and Mikhail Gurevich were an unusual but remarkably effective duo, two engineers with different temperaments who managed to build one of the most influential design bureaus in aviation history. Mikoyan was the organizer and front-facing leader, energetic, diplomatic, and skilled at navigating the rigid hierarchy of the Soviet defense industry. He wasn't a politician, but he understood how power worked. His brother, Anastas Mikoyan, held one of the highest posts in the Soviet government, and that connection provided the Bureau with something rare in Stalin's era, a measure of institutional stability. It didn't make them invincible, but it allowed the team to survive pressure, failed prototypes, and shifting political winds that might have crushed other design groups. Gurevich's role was very different, reserved, analytical, and deeply focused on the technical side of aircraft design. He preferred to stay in the drafting rooms rather than in meeting halls. He wasn't a lone mathematician scribbling formulas through the night, but the head of a strong aerodynamic team whose calculations shaped the performance of every early MiG fighter. Gurevich disliked publicity, rarely gave interviews, and avoided administrative responsibilities. Yet colleagues consistently described him as one of the most precise and disciplined minds in the entire Soviet aviation industry. Despite being equal co-authors of the Bureau's success, history didn't remember them equally. In official documents and foreign analyses, the name MiG was often associated almost exclusively with Mikoyan. Part of that came from his position as the administrative head of the Bureau, and part from the natural tendency, especially in the West, to attach complex engineering achievements to a single recognizable figure. But within the Soviet aviation community, there was no doubt. Without Gurevich's scientific rigor, the early MiG fighters would never have achieved their defining characteristics. Even their later years reflected this contrast. Mikoyan remained active in aviation for as long as his health allowed, passing away in 1970 after a long illness. Gurevich retired quietly in 1964, stepping away from public life just as he had avoided it throughout his career. He lived modestly, seldom appearing in the press, and died in 1976, at age 82, without ceremonies or special honors, but leaving behind designs that reshaped air combat. Together, they created a balance that neither could have achieved alone. One led and defended the Bureau, the other refined and shaped its engineering core, and it was this combination that turned their shared initials into a symbol recognized across the world: MiG. But the Bureau itself never stopped innovating. The MiG-25 evolved into the even more formidable MiG-31 Foxhound, a high-speed, long-range interceptor designed to counter modern threats such as strategic bombers and high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft. It featured powerful D-30F6 engines, an advanced Zaslon phased array radar, and the ability to track and engage multiple targets simultaneously at altitudes above 20 kilometers, making it a backbone of Russia's air defense for decades.
Its combination of speed, range, and long-range missile armament allowed it to patrol vast stretches of Soviet and later Russian airspace, far beyond the reach of most other fighters. The MiG-29 platform was constantly updated, giving rise to the carrier-capable MiG-29K, which included folding wings, strengthened landing gear, and advanced avionics for naval operations. Its modern evolution, the MiG-35, represents a significant leap forward. A 4++ generation fighter with multi-role capability, AESA radar, longer range, precision-guided weapons integration, and enhanced situational awareness. The MiG-35 program reflects Russia's ongoing effort to maintain technological parity with Western 4++ and 5th-generation fighters, while modernizing the MiG fleet for both domestic and export use.
From a curious boy staring at a crashed airplane in a field to the leader of a design bureau that rewrote the rules of aerial warfare, Artem Mikoyan's journey showed how far a single, unwavering vision can go. But the MiG legend was never a one-man story. Standing beside him was Mikhail Gurevich, the quiet mathematician of the skies, the man who turned raw ambition into aerodynamic reality. Together, they built machines that were more than weapons. They were declarations of power, fast, purposeful, engineered with a philosophy of brutal simplicity and absolute effectiveness. Mikoyan brought the direction, the protection, the ability to navigate the Soviet political storm. Gurevich brought the precision, the calculations, the aerodynamic instincts that made their aircraft fly like nothing else in the Soviet arsenal. And their legacy? It's not confined to archives or dim museum halls. It lives in the thousands of MiG fighters still slicing through the air today, and in a name that, for generations, became the unmistakable symbol of Eastern fighter jets. MiG wasn't just a bureau, it was a partnership. Two men, one vision, and an impact that still echoes across the sky. If you enjoyed this dive into aviation history, subscribe for more stories about the minds and machines that shaped the modern sky. Goodbye.